Hello everyone, happy Tuesday. It's time for another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. This is Lena Gersa. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. And today I am so excited to share some beautiful projects using the Blessings of Home bundle from the Stampin' Up! January to June mini catalog. Now, this bundle is part of a mega suite in the catalog called Heart and Home, and it just features so many fantastic products, including this bundle. There's another bundle, there's beautiful designer paper, there's ribbon, there's embellishments, there's a fantastic embossing folder, so many products as part of this suite. So you're going to see many of them in action today, but I am going to be focusing on that bundle specifically because it's just so beautiful. Now, this bundle is priced at $70, which actually gets you a Sale-a-bration item. Sale-a-bration, we're kind of into the final countdown for Sale-a-bration. We just have 6 more days. It ends a week from yesterday. So if you haven't picked up this bundle yet, it's a great time to get it before Sale-a-bration ends, and you can get yourself a Sale-a-bration freebie. All right, let me pull up my video here on my iPad and see who is joining me. Let's see who's here. Hi, Julie. How are you? Hope you've had a good day. Hi, Debbie and Violet. Thanks so much for joining me today. All right, so we are going to get right to it. I'm going to flip my camera, and we are going to make 3 pretty projects today that feature the bundle in different ways. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Oh, my lamp's in the way. We will move that. There we go. Get that lamp out of the way. And we'll slide this over so we can see a little bit better. Okay, that looks good. All right. Hi, Bonnie. How are you? Hope you are having a good day. I am also going to take and plug in my phone just so that we don't have a disaster and have my battery die mid-video. There we go. We should be good to go. So here is the layout in the catalog. This is in the January to June mini of this beautiful bundle. So we have these 2 gorgeous floral images that are just begging to be colored, and then some fantastic sentiments. Of course, we have dies. I'm going to show you the whole bundle up close and personal. So here's our stamp set. Now, these images on the stamp set are shown only at 90%. They're actually quite large. You'll see them in action in a few minutes. And then we have the coordinating dies. Now, these 2 dies obviously cut out these beautiful floral images. And then here we have just a huge selection of pretty sprigs and flowers that can be used to embellish the beautiful stamp set. So that is the bundle. It's a good one, as I mentioned. So let me get that out of the way, and we're going to get to it. Oh, it's cold there, Debbie. Here it's actually fairly mild, but pouring rain. It's just very wet today. I'm hoping most of our snow goes. I am quite done with snow. All right, so here is the first project we are going to make today. This is one I posted yesterday. Really pretty, really showcases the designer series paper in this suite. So let's pull these out. Now, there are so many different ways that we can color the images in this suite. So this one, I've already stamped and die cut my floral image. Now, this I stamped in basic gray ink. How is there a fly in here? There is a fly in my craft room. I don't know. He seriously must have gotten lost sometime last, I don't know, August, October, I don't know. Anyway, he's hanging around here. So if you see a fly buzzing around, there is a fly in my craft room in February. Whatever. So as I said, I've already stamped my image. I stamped it in basic gray ink, just for a little bit softer look than what we would get with the Memento Tuxedo Black. Now, I'm going to color these with my blends, and it totally works to stamp with basic gray. You don't have to use the black. There are several of our classic inks that will work with the Stampin' Blends. Okay, now one of the things I love most about these images is that they have this beautiful shading, which makes it really easy to color them. So for this one, I actually just want to sort of go over the lines of shading with my blends. I'm not going to color the whole petal on this large flower. I kind of like the look of having a little bit of white at the edge of the petals. There are quite a few flowers that are variegated like that, and I really like that look. I'm using, oh, there's the fly. He made a cameo appearance. I'm using my light Petal Pink blends to color this, okay? And then I'm gonna do the same thing on this smaller flower. Now the lines are a little bit longer on this one, but same kind of idea. I'm just leaving the edges of the petals white. So I'm just gonna kind of come around and shade that. So this coloring goes really, really quickly, right? Because I'm not worried about shading in the entire petal. Hi Judy, how are you? I hope things are okay up there in Wawa. Now for my flower centers, I'm going to color the entire center on these. I'm using my light So Saffron here. So I'm just going to color these guys, and then I'm actually going to color these little bitty flowers in the yellow as well. Now I'm coloring the entire petals on these because, well, they're so tiny that you wouldn't even notice the color if I only added a little bit. So we're going to color the entire thing. And again, they go really quickly because they're so teeny tiny. And then to color my leaves, I'm actually using light soft seafoam. Now that color isn't in the DSP, but because this is such a soft, light green, we can get away with using something that doesn't necessarily coordinate with the DSP. So once again, I am just sort of following the shading on my leaves. I'm not coloring right to the edge, just to kind of be consistent with what I did on my petals. So we're just going to kind of color partway down the leaf. Oh, I noticed I missed a flower. I will come back and catch that poor uncolored flower in just one sec. Okay, there we go. So super quick and easy to color this image. Let's just add a little bit of yellow there to that flower. Oh, I also missed a leaf. Wow. I am not very on the ball today. Missing lots of little bits and bobs here on my flower. I'm going to color the centers of my yellow flowers green, just because I don't like them left white. And then I'm going to add just a hint of the green to my stem. I'm not, again, really taking care to fill in the entire stem, but I just want to add a subtle bit of color. So isn't that a quick and easy way to color that image? Okay, really, really simple. Hi, Betty, how are you? Hi, Tamara, how are you? Hi, Deb. You had to hunt for my live. Huh, that's weird. All right, so to assemble the rest of our card, we have our card base here. This is Petal Pink cardstock. Now, I should mention, Petal Pink is not listed as one of the colors in this paper. It's actually Pale Papaya. And if you look really, really closely, you'll see that this isn't quite an exact match, but it's just so close. And some of the darker shading to me reads as Petal Pink, so I thought it totally worked. So I'm going with it. So this is cut to 5.5 by 8.5, scored in the middle at 4 1/4. So we're just going to fold that in half along our score line and burnish it with our bone folder. And then I have a piece of that beautiful DSP. It is 5 1/4 by 4 inches. So we're going to add a little bit of adhesive to that and pop it onto the front of our card. Now this is directionally specific DSP. You do kind of want to pay attention to which direction your flowers go when you're cutting it and gluing it down. Oh, Mr. Fly, go away. He's slow and dopey, this fly. He's clearly around from last winter. I don't know what he's been living on. All right, next up we have this is a die cut stitched rectangle. Die cut using the stitch rectangle dies. It's another pattern from the DSP. Now the cool thing about this DSP is it has these beautiful almost linen look textured patterns on one side, and then the reverse side of all the sheets are different wood grain patterns. And I absolutely love this diagonal wood grain. I just think it adds really a lot of interest and texture. So we are going to adhere this die cut stitch rectangle to another piece of Petal Pink cardstock. This one is cut. It's got weird measurements because it's die cut. It's 2 3/4 by 4 1/8. Okay, so it is going to match our stitched rectangle. So we're going to add a little bit of adhesive. Oh, well, thanks for joining me, Tamara. Welcome. I'm glad you found me. Come on. There we go. This Tombow is getting a little bit low. We are running out. All right. Yes, I love wood grain patterns too, Betty. And what I love about these is that they're like white, so you can color them with your blends. You can use your blending brushes to add any color you like. Hi, Joyce. Welcome. All right, so we are going to pop this onto the front of our card. We're going to actually pop it up with some dimensionals. So let's just add a few of these guys here. And pop them on. Oops, dimensional sticking to my fingernail. I broke my thumbnail yesterday, so I'm crafting challenged. I have a very short right thumbnail, which is usually the way I peel off my dimensional backing. So I may have to resort to my take your pick at some point. All right, so there is our card base. Okay, now we've got our beautiful colored flower, so we're going to add a couple of dimensionals to that. Yes, if you are new, Tamara, you will learn this about me really quickly. I am a dimensionals addict, so I tend to use dimensionals a lot. I am big on double popping and triple popping. Yes, I know it makes them a challenge to mail, but to me it is worth it, the extra effort. Now you're going to notice I'm moving my flower over a little bit. When I had stuck this on, after I looked at it, I was like, it's too far to the left. So I'm actually going to modify my original design and shove it over a little bit so that I see a little bit of the wood grain on the left of the flowers. Okay. Next, we are going to stamp our sentiment. So these are just little off-cut strips from when I cut my basic white layers for inside my cards. So they're little 1/2 inch by 4 strips, and I save them because they make great little banners, especially for long, narrow sentiments like this. So this one is from the stamp set. It says, "Have a perfect birthday." I'm going to ink it up in some smoky slate. I'm going to do a quick test run here just to make sure that this is straight, and see it's not. So one of the challenges when you get your stamp set is that you have to mount your stamps. And sometimes we are not necessarily quite accurate with getting our stamps mounted, and we end up with them a little bit crooked. So it's always a good idea to do a little bit of a test run before you stamp, just to make sure your stamps are mounted straight, and if not, to compensate. Oh, look at that, I missed the bottom of my Y on birthday. Let's try that one more time, because that will bug me. Let's do that one more time. So I have to compensate with this stamp a little bit and stamp it a little bit angled in order to get it to stamp straight. Okay, so that was the moral of that little story there. All right, so now we are going to take, I didn't bring my tailor tag punch over, so we're going to do it the hard way. We are going to trim the ends of our little strip here into a banner. So if you don't have a punch to punch your banner ends, it's really easy to do with your paper snip. So you're going to cut in the middle and then go from the corner and then the opposite corner. And by making that initial snip first, it helps you to kind of get your banner even and have them come in at the same depth. Okay, so that's just a little tip for hand cutting your banner ends. I don't often do it because usually I have my punch handy, but I didn't bring it over. So there you go. All right. All right, so this is going to go onto the front of my card. Now I'm going to pop this up as well. The end that overlaps my flowers, I'm going to put a little bit of tape, okay, because we don't want it to bump over the flowers that are already popped. So I'll put a little bit of tape here. Oh, you like making envelopes? Awesome. Okay, you guys, I get it. Yes, I'm a little bit addicted to bling and to Wink of Stella. Yes, yes, you know me too well. All right. Is there anything wrong with bling and Wink of Stella? No, there is not. So there you go. All right, we are going to tie a cute little bow. So this is actually ribbon from the New Horizons suite. It is super cute ribbon. It's almost like a soft linen ribbon, and it's only 1/8 of an inch wide, which makes it really easy to tie bows with. So I'm going to tie a little bow here, and we'll adjust our loops. Mr. Fly is making a royal nuisance of himself. He just keeps hanging around. Of course, he's got an entire craft room to fly around in, and of course he's right here, right? Because, you know, he wants his 15 seconds of fame. So we're going to trim the ends. Whoops, that one did not trim so well. These are not the sharpest of snips. These are not my good ones. All right, so we're going to pop that onto the front of our card. And I'm going to put it a little bit of an angle because my banner is actually, I didn't leave as much space on the end of my banner as I did on my sample. So I'm first going to make my loops a little bit smaller, and then we're going to grab a glue dot and press the knot of our bow into a glue dot, and then we're going to add our little bow just like that. Okay, now those tails are still a bit long. I should have brought my ribbon scissors over. Don't know what I was thinking. I think I will grab them for the next card because we're going to need them again. All right, so there we go. Last little touch. It's a bit of bling. Yes, yes, I like my bling. So I have some silver metallic pearls here. Now these are one of my very favorite embellishments from the annual catalog because they work with just about everything. First of all, they come in a pack with both gold and silver. So you kind of got both metallics covered, and they're just the softest little touch of bling to just add that extra little something something to your card. Okay, now the final touch, I refrained, but the final perfect touch would be to add a little bit of Wink of Stella to my flower, but I'm gonna refrain. See, I'm resisting the urge. All right, so that is card number 1. Let's get all my mess out of the way here, and we will move on to card number 2. I'm just gonna grab my ribbon scissors for a sec. There we go. We're going to need those in a few minutes. All right, the next card we're going to do is this one. Now, this uses a technique that I haven't used in a really long time. This is one, some people call it black magic. Some people call it, what is it? Whitewashing. Okay, so there's lots of different names for it. But essentially, what we're going to do is stamp the image and heat emboss it in white. And then there's a couple of ways that you can color your image. Now, before we had watercolor pencils, we would use white craft ink and an aqua painter. However, now we have the watercolor pencils, and the white watercolor pencil works beautifully for this technique. So I'm going to show you how to do it. We're even going to heat emboss. I don't often heat emboss in videos because I don't like the noise, but I wanted to show this technique start to finish. So here we go. All right. No flicking the Wink of Stella. Nope, not today, Louise. I'm resisting the urge. All right, so we're starting with a piece of Night of Navy cardstock. This is 3.5 by 4 3/4 inches. Okay, so it's a little bit smaller than a typical card front, and that's because I wanted to showcase the beautiful DSP in behind it. Okay, so we're gonna start now. Anytime I heat emboss, I use an embossing buddy. Now the embossing buddy is not something we carry anymore. I still don't understand why we got rid of it because it's one of those sort of essential tools when you're heat embossing, but we no longer carry it. See, this used to be a Stampin' Up one, but I'm told, I've never tried it, but I'm told that a dryer sheet will do the same kind of thing. The purpose of the embossing buddy is to make sure there's no static or anything sticky on your cardstock so that when you stamp your beautiful image, the embossing powder only sticks to the stamped image. Okay. All right, so I'm going to take this gorgeous, look at how beautiful that stamp is. We're going to take and ink it up using Versamark. Now this is a large stamp. Anytime I have a large stamp, I take my pad to the stamp instead of the other way around. And that way I can make sure that the entire stamp is getting inked. So I'm going to stamp a little bit in this sort of bottom left. Okay, you're not going to see that especially well just yet. Versamark is a colorless ink. It's actually watermark ink, and it's perfect for heat embossing. Whoops, I want to use this part of my stamp. I want to use a different part of my stamp for the upper part. So we're going to stamp this part, top right corner, with a different part of the stamp. So to do that, I just rotated my stamp. Okay, I'm not sure how well that image is going to show up. It'll show up really well in a second when I add the embossing powder. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in my embossing powder. We're going to sprinkle it all over our stamped images. Now this is white embossing powder that has seen better days. It's got all kinds of little bits of all kinds of things in here because it's nearing the end of its life. Gonna have to order a new one, but there you go. Aren't those beautiful images? Oh, they're so detailed and gorgeous. I absolutely love them. So we're gonna set that aside, get it out of the way, and then I'm gonna bring in my heat tool. Now, a couple of tips. I've often had people message me saying they cannot get a decent quality image when they're heat embossing. They just, it melts too much, or they get all kinds of extra powder here and there, and I just put some on there from my finger. So the embossing buddy does help with that. Okay, the embossing buddy, you'll see that there's no extra little bits of powder anywhere. It's only stuck to my stamped image. Okay, now when we're heating, Before I turn this on, I'm going to give some tips. So when we turn this on, this first of all is going to get really hot. Okay, so you don't want to be touching that end. When we're heating, we don't want to do the blow dryer thing. And by blow dry, I mean, you know, you're blow drying your hair and you kind of go back and forth. When you do that, you end up with uneven heating. So some areas will get overheated and they will scorch, and that's where you get over melting of your powder. Sometimes if it scorches and you're using metallics, it's not shiny anymore. It kind of gets a dull look. And then other areas may not set properly, and when you go to touch your image, you'll rub part of your image off. Okay, so when we're heating, we want to hold it in one spot until we see that powder starting to melt and get shiny, and then we're going to gradually move across our image. We're not going to go back and forth. Okay, so here we go. It takes a second for the heat tool to warm up. Okay, and then we're going to come over our image, and I'm going to hold it in place until I see that powder starting to melt and get shiny. It is hard to see when you're not looking directly over it, I will say that. There we go. It's starting to get a little bit brighter white as I apply the heat. You can kind of see it happening. And we're just going to come across our image until we've melted the whole thing. Okay, let's just hit that middle section again, make sure we're fully set. There we go. Can you see the difference in color? This part is set, this part down here is not. Okay, so I'm going to rotate this and heat this upper part. Louise, I've got it on the high setting. So this heat tool has two settings. One is for ink drying. The higher setting is for embossing. So you do need to have it on the higher setting. If you have one of our older heat tools, it only has one setting. So you don't have to worry about it. But for this one, you do need the higher setting. All right, I think we are good. Let's just make sure that's fully set. There we go. So that is our heat embossed image. Now this looks lovely just like that. Like really, it's pretty fantastic. I actually almost stopped at this step, but then I had to bring in my watercolor pencil and add a little bit of highlighting to some of my florals. So our watercolor pencils come in there's two collections, and this is in the first one, the original collection. It's the Whisper White, and it looks fantastic on dark cardstock. So to color, I'm literally just taking my pencil and coloring. Now, let me just say, when you get your watercolor pencils, they come sharpened. The first thing that you want to do is dull them. Do you see how dull the tip on this pencil is? To get nice, even shading, you want a dull tip. You do not want a sharp point. So if you are someone who, when you were in elementary school, always made sure your pencil crayons were super like needle sharp, this is not the best way to color with watercolor pencils because you're going to actually see the lines and the point will actually scratch your cardstock. This fly is really annoying me, I gotta say. So you want a dull end so that kind of just smudges on as we're going here. So you want to color over the entire petal, and I'm actually going over some of the embossed sort of shading on it as well, just to make sure I kind of get in behind those shaded lines, just to make sure I get a nice crisp image here. I'm just going to come around, color this whole thing, just like that. And I'm also going to color the center of my flower. Okay, so this is pretty quick. Doesn't require any special tools aside from your heat embossing, but actually coloring the image is pretty simple. I'm also going to color this one white up here. It's quicker than using other coloring media because you don't have to really worry too much about staying in the lines. You're really just kind of coloring over the entire image. So I'm not having to worry about, you know, watching, making sure I'm coloring each petal one at a time. I can just color the entire thing. And I absolutely love the look of this. It's just so soft and delicate. Okay, now if you wanted it to be starker white, you can go over it a second time with your pencils. I did that on mine. I went over it twice. I'm not going to take the time to do that now, but you can get the idea even with just one layer. Okay, up here I'm going to do the same thing with this flower. So we'll just color this one really quickly. Just make sure we get these fully shaded in here. I always have to take a second and look at which petals belong to which flowers when I get to this section here, because it's easy to mix them up. And then we'll color the center. Okay, and then this petal still is part of this flower as well. And then we're going to do these petals because they're part of this large flower. It's the same image, right? So we're just going to color these guys as well. Again, because they're going to show. So we kind of want them to be consistent. And what I find when you're trying to blend out the white and have it look nice and even is you kind of go in a circular pattern, and that will eliminate any sort of lines from your coloring. Okay, but there you go. Isn't that a pretty look? I really, really love it. Yes, one Louise is just for drying ink. That is right. Yeah. Okay, so that is really it for this card. We're just going to stamp our sentiment and put it together. So our sentiment is going to get stamped on this tag or label cut with the tailored or tasteful labels, I should say. And I'm going to stamp it in navy ink. So this is another sentiment. It says, "Thank you for inspiring me." So we're going to ink up with some navy ink. Now my grid paper is a little bit rippled from the heat, so I may have to take this top sheet off because stuff won't lay flat when that is rippled like that. But let's stamp this guy first. There we go. I love the look of navy ink on white. It's just so nice and crisp. Okay, so to put this together, we're going to pull out our card base and our DSP. So our card base is Night of Navy cardstock, 4 1/4 by 11 inches, scored in the middle at 5 1/2. So we'll fold that in half along our score line and crisp it up with our bone folder. And then I have another pattern of that beautiful DSP. This is just a beautiful wood grain on the back, but I'm loving this sort of mosaic blue. It's actually Misty Moonlight, and it works really well with the navy. Even though it's a little bit lighter than the navy, it still totally works. So we're gonna layer that. This is cut to 4 by 5 1/4 inches. So let's pop that on here. And get that centered. There we go. Okay, now before we adhere our embossed panel, we're actually, did I cut that the right size? Oh yeah, I did. It just looks, nope, you know what? It's a little long. Ha! I am not going blind. Let's shorten that up a bit. Let's just take a quick look and see what size I actually cut this. This is 4 1/2. This is 4 3/4. So we're gonna cut a little bit off the bottom of this. And by a little bit, I mean 1/4 inch. And then it's going to fit on the front of our card a little better. There we go. Okay, so that measurement, I'll put these all in the description after, but it's 3 1/2 by 4 1/2. Okay, that's easier to remember anyway. We're going to add a little bit of this beautiful denim look ribbon. Now this is part of the suite as well. So I'm gonna just add a little bit that's going to wrap around our panel here. So it's going to kind of come across, not right in the middle, because we're going to put our label a little bit towards the bottom. So I'm going to just put a little bit of ribbon across. I am not a big fan of wasting ribbon on the back sides of my panels, so I always cut a length and adhere it rather than wrapping and tying. I just find that doesn't waste ribbon. Our ribbon lasts longer. All right, so now this is going to get popped up on the front of our card. Yes, I said popped up. You should have been expecting that. There is no other way. We must pop. That's all I'm going to say. We'll just add a couple more on the sides here because it's a fairly long piece. So we'll get rid of our backings. Not having a right thumbnail is like working without a right hand. My goodness. All right, we're going to center this on our card base. Right about there looks good. Okay. Now we're going to add our sentiment, but first we're going to add some pretty little die cut sprigs. So remember those dies I showed you that are part of this suite? So these are some of the pretty sprigs that you can cut with. They're just so gorgeous and so delicate. So I'm going to cut this one pretty much in half. I just kind of want the flowers from this one. We're going to add a little bit of adhesive, sort of the top and the bottom of our sprig here. I'm going to add this little flower with it kind of hanging over the label a little bit. And then I have another little sprig here. I forgot to poke out my bits on this one. Oh, scissors are stuck on my thumb. Goodness me. So we'll get rid of these little bits because I really like the delicateness of them with those bits out. You can certainly leave them in if you like that look, and I often do on some projects, but I really like how delicate they are. Okay, so there is our sentiment. Now we're going to add again a couple of dimensionals, and we're going to pop that up on the front of our card. So we'll get rid of our backings. Go for it. Go for it. All right, we are going to pop this up. Now, again, I'm a big fan of offsetting. I could put this on so that it was centered on my ribbon, but I actually like it up a little bit so that the ribbon is kind of coming across behind the lower part of my sentiment. So I am going to stick it just like that. Okay, then we're going to tie a cute little bow with this same faux denim ribbon. So we'll do our cute little bow. So I like to start with this ribbon. I like to start with my loops quite small and then pull them so I get a really nice tight knot. It gathers really nicely when you do that. So we're going to trim the tails off. And then that is going to get stuck just in that bottom left corner of our label. So we'll just grab a glue dot here. Hi, Darlene. I totally understand. Thinking today was Monday, I was kind of thinking that all day today at school. I kept saying, yeah, so, well, I actually almost didn't show up for my supervision today because I thought it was Monday, but it's Tuesday and I have supervision on Tuesdays. So there we go. All right, so there is our card. Now we're going to add just some of these adorable little embellishments. Now these are also part of the Heart and Home suite, and they're called Classic Matte Dots. Now I just popped one of these off with my fingernail. They come on a sheet with white, vanilla, basic gray, and basic black. So all your basic colors. And the cool thing about these is if I wanted to, let's say I wanted navy dots, I could just color them with my navy Stampin' Blends, which is pretty awesome. But for now, we're going to go with the white because I like the white against the navy, just adding that extra little something something. Okay, really, really simple card, but beautiful technique. Okay, so there we go. That's number 2. Again, I'm going to clean up my mess here a little bit. And we're going to get to my very favorite card, which is this one. So I posted this earlier today. I absolutely am in love with this card. I love the vintage sort of vibe of this one. Very country, very farmhouse. I just love the look of it. And what I love most is that I actually used, to color my flowers, I used our Natural Collection skin tone blends that just came out at the beginning of February. So I will tell you the colors that I used and show you how I colored it. Now I have done most of the coloring on this one in advance, just again, because you watched me color enough today. But I did leave one of each sort of flower and pet and leaf so I could show you all the colors I used. So for the larger flowers, I used the 800, SU 800. So our Natural Tones blends don't have color names like the rest of our colors do, okay? But the Natural Tones are numbered from 100 to 1000, okay? 100 being the darkest, 1000 being the lightest. So this is 800. It's kind of got an orangey undertone. So I'm going to color this large flower. Now, I need to mention I stamped my image in early espresso. Again, I was going for that sort of vintage kind of vibe. And the early espresso, it pretty much holds with the alcohol markers. It may run just the slightest little bit. You can kind of see in the center of this flower. But again, I feel like that adds to the sort of vintage feel, right? Sort of the blurred images, aged paper. So I actually kind of did that on purpose. I really like that look for this card. So I'm just going to color these petals. I didn't do any shading at all. I just colored straight up. There is so much beautiful shading in the images that you really don't need to do a whole lot of shading when you're coloring. You can just color straight up right over them and you still get that beautiful shaded effect thanks to the detail in the stamp. So here we go. We'll color this guy. So that's the larger flowers. Okay, so that's these guys here. I colored all in the same. That's SU 800. Okay, for these smaller flowers down here, I used SU 1000. So this is our lightest. It's got a much more pinky undertone. So we're going to color those flowers in this sort of pinky shade, and it looks much more peach. As I'm putting it on here, it's going to dry more pink as it sets. So we're just going to color that guy. Okay, and then for the centers of my flowers, I actually used my light crumb cake. I wanted a pale brown and with a little bit of a green undertone. So the crumb cake does have a bit of a green undertone to it, so it worked quite well. So all of my flower centers are in the light crumb cake. And then my leaves, I wanted a little bit of a gold sort of green undertone, so I used the light soft suede. Okay. So I'm just going to come in and color my leaves in the light soft suede, and it's just got enough of a green undertone that it works for the leaves. Darlene, you will totally, the more you color, the more comfortable you get with it, and the better you feel about it. When you don't feel good about your coloring and you kind of are nervous and anxious, we tend to, you know, have a harder time blending and staying inside the lines. One little tip when you're coloring with the blends is to not go right up to the edge of the image. So I kind of come along the line, but I don't actually go over it. And by doing that, it keeps the bleed down a little bit. Alcohol markers tend to bleed a little bit. That's just a natural phenomena of alcohol markers. And if you don't go right up to the edge, it'll help that the bleed will actually come to the edge and it'll fill in any gap that you have. Okay, so there is our beautiful floral image. Now we're going to set that aside. We're going to do a little bit of distressing or aging to our DSP and our label. So this is more of that beautiful DSP, the Heart and Home DSP. So I love this sort of plank look, but it was too white, right? I was going for a vintage vibe. So we are going to pull in our soft suede ink pad and our blending brush. And we are going to blend this out. It does look like a recipe card. You're right. You're absolutely right. Okay, so let's pick up a little bit of the soft suede ink. And I'm going to start off the edge of my paper and I'm just going to come on in a circular motion. Okay. So our blending brushes, if you have not discovered or tried them yet, now I have cat hair, of course, everywhere because, you know, I got cat hair in my blending brushes. Because, you know, they have to be in the middle of everything that I'm doing. There's a line here that's cat hair. Thank you very much, Phoebe. Let's see if we can get rid of that. So our blending brushes are quite magical in that you cannot press too hard with these. So with our sponge daubers, which I'm a huge fan of as well, but if you start and then start swirling or you press too hard with your dauber, you tend to get uneven inking. With these, it is very hard. You have to really try to get uneven inking. The ink just sort of glides on really smoothly and you don't really have to press because it just sort of blends. They're magical, these brushes. They were new in last year's annual. Actually, no, last year's mini and carried over to the annual, and I absolutely adore them. Now, I'm not going to worry about inking the middle too much because it's going to get covered, but I just want to make sure I get the edges here. And the natural sort of phenomena that happens here is because we're always starting off the page and coming on, you're going to have a darker edge and sort of lighter towards the middle. And that's the beauty of it. So we're just going to finish this up. Okay, so there is our aged barn board. And then we're going to do the same kind of thing with our label. So this label is die cut from Very Vanilla cardstock using the Hippo and Friends dies. They have some awesome label dies in there. And again, I'm just going to kind of come on and distress this a little bit. I don't want it to look so bright cream. I want it to look a little bit aged and vintage. Okay. Oh, me too, Darlene. These are fantastic brushes. Absolutely love them. All right, so now we're going to stamp our sentiment. Our sentiment says we can get through anything together. So we're going to stamp that in early espresso ink. So I'm going to ink this up and then stamp it on my label, hopefully straight. Oh, that's not centered. Oh, it's not too bad. I can live with that. All right, now we're going to assemble our card. So my card base this time is cinnamon cider. I think it just works so well with the color scheme in my sort of vintage flowers. So we're going to fold our card base in half. It's 5.5 by 8.5, scored in the middle at 4 1/4. So we will just fold that in half. Okay, I know, isn't it funny? As the ink dries, the change in the shading. It's amazing. All right, so we're going to add a little bit of linen thread because I wanted just a little bit of texture on this card. So we're going to add a bit of linen thread, about 3/4 of an inch to an inch up from the bottom edge. So I'm going to add a glue dot right about there, right where that seam is in the planks. And again, I'm not going to waste any twine by wrapping it around my card front. So I'm just going to fold my twine in half so I have a double thickness, and we're going to lay it across the front of our card and then secure it with glue dots. Okay, so then I'm not wasting twine on the back side of my card where nobody sees it. So we're just going to run that across, stick her down, and we'll trim it off our roll here. There we go. It's almost time for a new roll of linen thread. And then that is going to get adhered to the front of our card. Okay, and isn't it amazing the way the soft suede ink blends with the cinnamon cider? Mr. Fly, you are just beyond annoying today. I may have to give him a name if he's gonna be hanging out here till summer. Or I'll just let Stella loose on him. Stella is our fly catcher in the summer. She spends all her time by the picture window in the living room chasing flies that may have gotten into the house. She's hilarious. And of course, when she catches them, she eats them. Gross, but that's what she does. All right, so there is our card front. Now, I have one of the beautiful doilies that are part of this suite. These are the Heart and Home doilies. They come in a package with 3 colors. So we have cinnamon cider, basic gray, and night of navy. Night of navy? Misty moonlight. Misty moonlight. And the back sides are white. So the fantastic thing is, if you don't like the colors, you just flip them over and use the white side. Okay, but for now we are going to use the cinnamon cider again because it coordinates beautifully with our projects. We're going to add a little bit of seal to the back of our doily, and I'm going to glue this on fairly near the bottom of my card here. Okay, because these flowers are going to go on just about like that, and I want my doily to be peeking out from behind them. Now, before we attach our flowers, we've got some more little sprigs. Okay, again, cut using those beautiful dies. I've cut them from cinnamon cider cardstock. So we're going to add just a little bit of seal to this sort of middle top section of our flowers here. And we are I'm going to trim this a little shorter because that's too long for what I need. So we're going to add our pretty die cuts here and do a little floral arranging. I know how much you guys love watching me arrange flowers. I do it almost every week, so you should all be experts by now just watching. Okay, so there we go. We've got our 3 little sprigs. I'm going to get rid of my little bits and my die cuts here because again, I feel like they kind of have a lacy look and they work really well with the doilies, right? The lacy doily, and I feel like the sprigs are quite lacy, so they complement each other. So we're going to adhere that to the front of our card with, you got it, dimensionals, because, you know, why glue it flat when you could pop it up? That's my motto. You don't want to know how many packs of dimensionals I go through in a week. It's a little bit alarming, but hey, use them or lose them, right? Okay, so let's pop this on. Again, we're going to angle it a little bit because I want to make sure that these pieces are not extending off the edge of my card. Okay, so it's going to go on about like that. Okay, and then we're going to add our pretty label. Now this is going to get popped, but again, the part that overlaps this part that's already popped, we're going to put some tape on. So we're going to put a little bit of tape here. And then a couple of dimensionals where it is going to adhere to the card. And we are going to, now again, I am not, as you know, I just mentioned, I'm not a fan of centering it on my twine, so I'm going to put it a little bit above. and hopefully get it straight. Okay, and then we're going to tie a double bow. Thanks, Darlene. I'm glad you like it. All right, so we're going to, again, fold our twine in half, and we're going to tie a bow. So this is how I tie my twine bow. So I just make a loop. I take my tail, I wrap it around that loop, and I bring it through. I don't actually tie a knot first. I just find that this works really well, and I don't end up with a really big, bulky knot. Now this twine has some kind of goop in there. I wonder if I can pull that out. Let's see if we can cut it out without... I don't know what that was. It looks like some plastic or paper or something that got woven in there during manufacturing. All right, there we go. So we will trim off the tails and get that out of the way. That's still a bit long. And then we are going to adhere this just sort of right in the corner of our label where the twine meets the edge of the label. So right about there. Okay, so again, I'm going to grab a glue dot. This time I'm going to roll a little glue booger. So I just take my glue dot, roll it into a little ball of glue, and then we're going to press the knot of our bow into that dot, and it will hold. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so we're going to add a couple more of our matte dot embellishments. This time I'm going to use the vanilla ones because they work with our color scheme. So we'll add a couple of these guys. We'll put this guy down here, and then one up here, and one up here. Okay, so whenever you're using embellishments like this, you want to make a triangle. Okay, so visually, that's what the eye likes to see. We like to see odd numbers, and we like to see a triangle. All right, so there we go. Now I'll just quick show you the inside of this one. I stamped more of the flowers and colored them on a piece of vanilla cardstock. I didn't include another sentiment because I thought this would be a really great encouragement card. It could be a sympathy card, could be a get well. So I can certainly add a sentiment later if I wanted to. Okay, so that's that one. Did I do anything? Oh, yeah, on this one. Oh, I should mention what I did on this one. So this one, I stamped the image in navy, and then I actually took a blender pen and I just picked up the ink from the shading on the stamp and just pulled it out a little bit and blended it out. And it just makes a really delicate, pretty look on the stamped image. So it's another way to color this image. Really quick and easy. Okay, and then our last one, which was actually our first one. Did I do anything on the inside of this one? Oh, yes, I did. I stamped another sentiment and added a little scrap of the DSP on the inside. So lots of ways to decorate the inside of your cards as well. Okay, now before I let you go, I want to give you a little sneak peek of 2 classes I have upcoming in March that are using products from this suite. Okay, so I'm going to move these out of the way for a sec. So the first class is, they're both using the Memories and More card kits, which are fantastic from this suite. So the first one coming up on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, is a Memories and More card class. So we have the cards and envelopes and the card kit. So this class uses both the cards and envelopes and the card kit. So we are making 5 of the full-size cards. These are all using the images and the cards that come in the Memories and More card kit. So no stamping at all on these images. So there's the 5 full-size cards. And then included in the card kit are these little 3.5 by 4 or 3.25 by 4.25 note cards, which I love. These are a great size if you don't like to write a lot. Awesome. So we'll be making 5 of those as well, for a total of, whoops, that one goes this way, for a total of 10 cards, okay? So that class is priced at $35, all right? And if you need it shipped, it's an extra $5 for postage. So that's that one. It includes a full pack of the Memories and More cards, a half pack of the cards and envelopes, and a pack of the doilies. Okay, so that is that one. Get these out of the way. And then the second class, which is actually on the next night, and I absolutely am in love with this project. I put together a beautiful 12 by 12 sampler. Let me see if I can angle my light so it's a little less glary here. This beautiful 12 by 12 sampler that uses the same card pack. So this is, again, Memories and More. And all of the images, there's absolutely 0 stamping on this one. Okay, so it's just images from the stamp set. I will provide the die cut little sprigs and whatnot, but everything is prepped and ready for you. So this one is, I think it's also 35. and includes the full pack of Memories and More cards and a pack of the metallic pearls, which are those adorable little embellishments. Okay, so those are the 2 classes I have coming up in March using products from this suite. So the sampler is on the 18th and the cards is on the 17th. Okay, so you can get information about that on my blog, alacards.blogspot.com, and click on the upcoming events tab and all of the info is there. Okay, all right, everybody. Oh, I'm so glad you like these projects. I had so much fun creating them. It's such an awesome suite to work with. All right, thanks everyone. Have a fantastic week. I will see you next week for another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. Bye for now.